What's going on, guys? Hope everybody's having a good Thursday. Welcome back to my channel where we're making a game similar to the game The Binding of Isaac. In this video, we're going to be making these giant skull dudes, rock skull dudes, I guess, and there's this brick road that's going between them. The entire project is available for download in the description of the video for free, and all of these models that we're making today, they're also available for download for free in the description of the video. Some of the stuff that I make in the video might not actually end up in the actual end game. So when I make this in Blender, sometimes I forget that the game is a top-down game, so you can't see a lot of the detail of like this skull dude, for example. He might get used for like a boss room or something like that, but I'm probably not going to leave this as like a left or right room. Yeah, if you guys are enjoying the series, make sure you like the video and subscribe to my channel. All right, so here we are in Blender. Just a fair warning, this is this technique is going to be for people with video cards only. So if you don't have like a good computer, this is probably going to not work for you. But let me just get rid of this bottom area. But anyway, so if you press tab, you can go into edit mode, press 7 to go into the top view, press S and Y to scale this on the Y axis, and then you could press 3 on the keyboard to get a side view, and S and Z to scale this on the Z axis, and press G and Z and move this up. And we want this like maybe that thin or something. And then you can press Control R on your keyboard to get a loop cut in the middle. Scale this down, press A and scale everything on the X axis so it's a little bit wider. And then you can press Alt and select this line to select the loop cut around the middle. And you can press Control B to bevel it, and then we'll make a bunch of cuts here like this. So if you've done this properly, you should have something like this, and that's the perfect shape for this. Now we need a lot of geometry. So for the sculpting brush to actually work, you have to create the geometry. Like the Dynatopo won't work for what we're going to be doing. So you actually have to make the geometry for this. There's a lot of ways you can do it. You could use remesh. That might be the best way. I'm not too sure. So click remesh and just drag this to like 0.5. And this could lag your computer really bad. So best of luck if you do this. And if you press tab, you can see that adds a lot of geometry. And you could also subdivide this. That might be better than remeshing it. I don't really know, and I don't really care. So inside of the sculpting tab, we want to add this brick texture, and I've attached this picture to the description of the video for free. And I'm also going to link where I got it from. I didn't make this. It's just something that I found on the internet. It's ideal for your texture to not be red. So if it's black and white, that's better because the black parts are unaffected by this and the white parts are pushed up. This still works because there is dark in the cracks and light in the areas, like the upper areas. But if you could find one that is black and white, it's better for sculpting because it doesn't read color data. It only reads black, like dark and light values. So hopefully that makes sense. The other thing, so to add this texture, you could just go to the texture tab and click this button and you'll open this image file. In the new version of Blender, there's like a little tab option at the bottom here. So if you want to create a custom tab that stays there for every single time you open up a new file, you can go to the regular painting area, select on one of your brushes. It doesn't really matter which one. Click this drop down and then click duplicate asset. When you do that, you can type in a name, and then in the bottom here where it says catalog, you could type in a name that you want your tab to be. So for example, if I type in custom here and select custom, this will add it to the custom tab that I already have. Or if I type in custom 1 and press enter and then press save, that will create a new tab that you can use to save your brushes. This is extremely handy. This is only available in the newest version of Blender. It's new right now anyway, 4.3.2, and it's kind of cool. So anyway, I'm just going to cancel out of this. I'm not creating a new brush right now, but also inside of this bricks texture that I made, I also changed the stroke from space, which is the default, to anchored. And so when you do this, you can drag the bricks onto the object instead of painting it like the way you would before. So this, let me show you the difference. So if you go to space, the default is actually 10%, not 150. So while you're dragging, and also the default strength is 0.5, not 0.1. So while you're dragging, you can see that it makes all of these copies of your bricks. We don't want that. We only want the bricks to appear in the area that we drag out from. So we're just going to change this to anchored. And this is for like when you're using a texture like this only. So you can drag to do this. Now you can see that this is really ugly. So let's turn the strength down a lot because we just want to barely indent the top to show where the bricks are, and then we're going to paint them. So let's go into 7 and do this. And this is still really bad. So there's not a lot of detail for the bricks, and we want to make more detail. So if you go to remesh at the top, we can change this to 0.3. And again, only do this if you have a good computer, because your computer might take the L here. So you can click remesh, and if you press tab, you can see it added more geometry. And we're just going to try this again with 0.3, and it's slightly better, but we're actually going to do 0.1. Okay, so now it's super, super high density. And if you go to the layout tab and you go into statistics, you can see this is 1.7 million triangles. So again, your computer might struggle with this. Mine doesn't because it's really good, but yours might take the L here. So I'm sorry if it does. So you can see with the more triangles you have, the more of this will be detailed. And then after we're done drawing these, then we're going to decimate it to get rid of some of the geometry. And you could also use retopology. I'm not going to explain that in this video. So if you do want to retopologize your mesh when you're done, you can go on the internet, just go on YouTube, and you can look up a video on how to do that. So we want to cut this into 3 perfect portions of this. So just do 1, 2, and then 3. And that's perfect. So when you're done painting these bricks onto here, you could go back to the layout tab, and then we need to decimate this because we can't have 1.7 million triangles in our actual game while we're playing. That's going to cause your game to lag. You're going to have FPS drops. So what you need to do is in the modifiers, you could do a decimate modifier, and you could put this all the way down to like 0.05 probably. Yeah, so you can see now we have 85,000 triangles, which is totally manageable. It's not a big deal. And the bricks have lost some of like the way that they look, but we're going to texture paint them. So you're going to be able to see them more after we texture paint them. If you want, you could use a higher strength in your sculpting brush. Oh crap, I clicked on this without finishing the decimate. Don't click on sculpting. Yeah, so what we need to do is in a layout, press Control A on your decimate modifier. And this pressing Control A applies it, and this will lag your computer probably. So then when that's done, now you should be able to go back and forth between the tabs instantly. So you could use a higher strength than 1.69 if you want these cracks to be deeper. I personally don't care about them being deeper. From the top-down perspective, so you got to think about when you're making stuff in the game, even though like there's triangulation in the gaps or whatever, you can't really see that. And it actually kind of adds a stylized look to it that actually looks pretty good. So even though it kind of looks like bad in Blender, in the actual game, it ends up looking good. So the next thing we need to do is we're going to paint this. So if you go to the brushes on the right, the material tab, you can just call this brick material. And then if you drag from the top right over like this, you can go to the shader menu, and then you can press N to get rid of that side panel thing. Press Shift A and type in image. And I'm trying to make this quick because we also have to make that head or whatever, and it's going to take longer than this took to make the head. So from here, you'll create an image texture with Shift A and click New. And we just want to make this like a dark gray. You want this to be the color of the cracks in the path. And then you could click New Image, and just turn up the roughness to like 0.8. And yeah. Okay, so from here, you need to unwrap the object in order to paint on it. So if you go to the UV editing tab, it should automatically go into edit mode. Make sure you press A so you can select everything. Then you can press U and then unwrap, Smart UV Project, and unwrap. I already did this before I recorded this, so it didn't do anything, but yours will do something. Yours won't be like this by default. And then if we go to the texture painting tab, you can see that I've also kind of set this one up a little bit. So the first thing you need to do is change it to paint soft, not soft pressure, just paint soft. And then it defaults to this black color. And so we also want this to be Material preview is fine. This is pretty dark. Let me just go back and check this out. Okay, so in the image texture, I didn't create an image texture, so we'll click new image here, and we'll go back to texture paint. So at the top here where there's black, you can click this little eyedropper and select some of the gray on the left side, and this will make the brush the same color that the object is. And then on the left, we want to change this to the 3D viewport so we can see this while we're doing it. And then we want to add, so change this to object mode. And we want to add a light over here. So let's add a sunlight and just move this up. And we will change the light to a 2, so it's more visible. And then we want to add as well some point lights. So you can press G and Z, G and X, G and Z, and set these to like 1,000 each or something like that. And I'm just going to make them like a tinted red. I kind of like that look. And maybe change this to 500, not so much. And then you can press Shift D and Y, and Shift D and Y, Shift D and X. And again, if you have a shitty computer, don't do this. This will make your computer lag more. I'm doing it because I have like a really high-end computer and I want to be able to see what I'm drawing over here. The other thing you could do is in the shading, just temporarily change the roughness to be like 0.25. We're going to change it back after, but the reason is that when you're actually painting this, it makes it easier to see what you're doing. So you can see there's way more reflections on the left side when we do this. And it makes it easier to see where the cracks and crevices are. So what we're going to do is in this color here, we've already selected the same gray that the color is. We just want to turn up the brightness a little bit, and then we're going to start painting with the brighter version of this. And so the reason we're showing this on the left here is because you can actually see a lot better on the left where the actual tiles are. And this is how it will look in the game as well. So you could paint it with the left or the right. It doesn't really matter. So see on the right here, we can see this little crevice, but on the left, we can't actually see it as much. So we want to use both sides to determine what can be seen and what can't be seen. And this is a very rough first pass, so don't worry about making this perfect. Also, remember, it's a top-down game and it's a stick man game, so you don't need to go too crazy with this, trust me. It won't be as noticeable as you think. And also, when you turn the roughness down, or sorry, up, and the smoothness down, you can't see as many of the details, so it won't be as big of a deal if you mess anything up. So after you're done the first pass, then we need a lighter color, so just go a little bit lighter. We just turn down the radius just slightly, and then we want to do the same thing, but we only want the middles of these to be light. And so it kind of gives this multi-colored effect, like a gradient almost. The center is supposed to be light, and then the edges are darker, and the cracks are the darkest. And so we're probably only going to do 2 passes of this. So let's see. Okay, so you can see on the left, this looks really cool like this now. So we're going to go back and turn down the, turn up the roughness. Because again, we don't want all those reflections. We were just doing that because it makes it easier to paint and see where the cracks are. So if we go back to texture paint, you can see this looks pretty cool. These cracks will be more visible inside of Unity. You can't really see them here as much, but in the actual game, you'll be able to see them more. And if you do want deeper cracks, of course, you can either go back into sculpt mode and dig them deeper without going into Dynotopo, so that way you don't create any more vertices. Or you could, when you put the texture on, like when you painted this the first time, I think I had my sensitivity set to 1.169. You could make this number significantly higher. So you could do up to like 0.3, and then the crevices would be way deeper. I think this looks pretty good. And again, it's a top-down game, so you're not really going to see too much of the detail. All right, so moving on, we're going to make that head now, the demon skull head thing or whatever. So let's go ahead and delete all these lights, and we're going to change this. If you're not already in Material Preview, make sure you're in Material Preview so that your computer doesn't lag while we're doing this. And we're just going to turn off the sun for now. And we're just going to create a mesh. It's going to be a cube. You can move this in object mode so that the origin stays with the object. And then you'll press tab on your keyboard and G and Z to move this up. And then you can select these top vertices and press G and Z and then A, S, Shift Z to scale this out. So it's massive. And then, so we want to actually move these ones down. So G and Z to move them down and press Control R and make 2 loop cuts. And so these are going to be where the eyes are going to go. So you can take both of these and press G and Z and move them up. And then we're going to also do a loop cut like this. And you can press SZ0 to scale it all the way to 0. And actually, we want 2 of these. So press Control R again and we'll do 2 of these, and you could just hold Alt and left click on the loop cut and press SZ0 to scale it to exactly 0. And then Alt left click on this one, SZ0 to scale it exactly to 0. And then we're just going to move this down. So press G and Z to move the whole loop cut down. And then if you go to face select at the top here, you can select this face and select this face, and you can go to edge, bridge edge loops. This will make a hole in the middle. And so this is a good starting point for this. And I just got to look at my picture to see what I am even doing. So hang on. Okay, so the eyes should be up, but in the middle, maybe there could be another loop cut here, and G and Z, you can move this down like this. And this is a very, very rough start to what it's going to look like. And then the other thing is like this line here, like these ones could maybe come out a little bit. And then we're not going to loop cut this anymore. So we just are making a starting object so that we can have something to sculpt on that is not, we don't want to sculpt from scratch. So we want to kind of make the object as best we can in the hard object modeling or whatever before we actually go into the sculpting tab and do this. So here we are, and we just want to turn on Dynatopple for this. So in your main, click all at the bottom and then go to clay strips. And we want to do this here. And then so the radius needs to be like 50, so it's quite big. And we need to turn on Dynatopple so you can minimize the texture and the stroke and stuff. All those settings are already set for this. Turn on Dynatopple. I'm going to turn mine to 4. You might have to do more than that depending on how good your computer is. And so then when you start sculpting on this, this will add the geometry. So we want to press Control Z on this. We want to turn on the X symmetry first. So that way it's doing the same things on both sides. And then we just want to kind of go over this once so there's geometry everywhere. So that way there's no like hard edges left. And then we're going to do different stuff afterwards. So let's just go ahead and do this here and fill this in a little bit. And you could actually hold Control because we want this to be more of a rounded entrance. We don't want this to just go, make sure you're just doing this on the inside like this so that you can push it outwards like this. And hopefully this one will turn out even better than the one that I had, but who knows. So then we want to make 2 eyes. And then if you ever look at like a crocodile or an alligator, there's like, you've got this first set and then you've got subsequent sets. And then you want them to go back eventually into one like this. So we want these to be kind of significantly larger. So like this. And then we're going to have to make a hole in the middle. So this can stay creviced kind of like this. No, I'll just Control Z that. And then if you hold Control on like this area, you can dig yourself a little hole here where the eyes can go and just kind of join it. But make sure you don't overlap the middle because that's like the nose area. So if anything, this part can come out a bit. Because we want this to be sticking out like kind of like a nose. And then there's holes here where the eyes are going to go. So let's go ahead and just keep going for now. And we don't need to go too deep. We're going to put spheres inside of this. So when we put the sphere inside of this, it will cover up the hole and it will be a smooth eye for the thing. And then we're going to put a light on top of the sphere so that we can get the glowing red look to it. So here we want this to come out and so that he can have like more geometry like this. And you don't need to worry about the texturing of this at all because we're going to be painting this. So if you hold shift, you can smooth out some of this stuff that we've added. And this is adding a lot of vertices, by the way. So while you're doing this, it's adding a lot of vertices, and we're going to smooth out everything because we're going to draw on this with a rock brush. I know that's a big surprise, but yeah. So now that it's all kind of smoothed out, we're not going to put the eyes in yet, although we could probably do that and get away with it. We just want this to be as smooth as it can be, and then maybe just smooth this out too. And how are we looking for shape? Just kind of comes in like this. Okay. Maybe it just needs to actually be like this. The beauty of doing like a cave structure is kind of that it's not really like rock walls could look kind of like anything depending on how they were created. So I don't think it really matters too much. So I mean this is looking okay. Again, it's not really the same as what we had. Maybe this needs to come down a little bit like this. And then you could add tonsils by doing like that, maybe. I don't know. Okay, so somewhere along the lines here, we've destroyed the mesh. So let's just do. So I'm holding shift to smooth things out, and then left click with the clay strips to add more geometry. And so this is looking okay. And when we add the rock texture, it's going to really add to this. So again, the same thing that we did to add a custom texture before with the bricks, you can open the rock brush doing the same thing. And I've already set it up. So we'll turn off Thinatopo. We only want to be doing this to the mesh that we've already created. And remember to set the stroke to anchored so that it's all happening in the same spot. So when you do this, it should add rock formations to this. So you could go around this. And if you don't have enough geometry, you could retopo your model before doing this, or you could change your thing to lower. So my dot and topo was set at 4. You could set it to 3, and which would make it more like have more geometry. And you could even put rocks on the nostrils like this so that the whole thing is kind of rocky. This is the beauty of like a rock wall because it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't really matter. And we are going to paint this too. So it's not a big deal if it doesn't look perfect yet. So this is looking pretty good, to be honest. This is very similar to what we already had. So we just want to make sure that the rocks are kind of similar for this. So let's smooth this out and just do it again. And then this can have the same level of detail. So if you put that level of detail here, you got to do it at the top as well. And I think this is looking really good. So let's go back to the layout mode, and we're just going to hide the floor by pressing H. And what we could do is if you press, so click, no, let's do this off of this. So press F2 on this head and just call this like skull or something. Don't include the semicolon. I didn't mean to do that. Just skull. And then you can press Shift A and add a UV sphere. And we want to keep this as a separate object until we're done painting. So press G and Z and G and Y, and you can move it right into the skull and G and whatever, and then RX90 to have it facing towards the entrance. And then we want to shade this smooth. It's supposed to be smooth, okay? And so just if you get a front view, you can move it so that it fits perfectly in the eye. And remember that we're going to be putting a light in front of this. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be there because we don't want there to just be a hole. And so you can press Shift D on the sphere and press X to move it over. And then select both of the eyes and press Control J. And then you can press F2 and type in eyes. And we'll just call these eyes. And yeah, so they're looking pretty good. And then, so now we need to paint this. So the steps to painting this are very similar to the road that leads into it. So if you click on the material tab, you can click new, and we'll just call this skull material. And then we want to click on the eyes as well and shift click this and press Control J and join them together. And then if we click on the eyes, we're going to hit plus and we're going to go new material and we'll call this skull eye material. And you can give these a red glow if you want to. We're going to obviously have to change this inside of Unity. The glowing system doesn't work the same in Unity that it does in Blender. So don't go too crazy with this. So make sure you're in material preview. And so for the eyes, press L on both of them so you can select them and just hit assign. If you don't do this, you want to be able to see that you've changed the color of the eyes so that way you know that they're going to be affected in Unity. And we're probably not going to be using too bright of an emission because, again, we're going to be putting a light, like an actual light in both of the eyes to make them light up. So then we need to do the same thing where we can drag out another tab here and go into the shader editor and press N to get rid of that side panel. Click somewhere, and this has selected the skull eye material. So make sure you have the skull material selected because we want to paint on that one. And we can press Shift A and type in image, and we'll put this in and we'll drag this to the base color. And again, we just want to turn it down the color a little bit. So hit new and we'll call this skull material. And the color should default to the last color that you selected, which is exactly the same as the ground, which is perfect for this. So when you do this, you can see this looks pretty good. Turn up the roughness. Again, we don't want shiny, like the rocks are not shiny. They're like the opposite of shiny, right? So sometimes it's good to have the shininess inside of Blender so you can see if there's any like imperfections. But when we bring this into Unity, it's not going to exist. So you're not going to be able to see all of those like reflections or anything like that unless you purposely want that. So let's go into the UV editing and we will press A, and you could just hit U and hit unwrap smart UV project. This will also unwrap the eyes. You can see them right here, but because the eyes are using a different texture, it doesn't matter. They're still going to just be they're going to be the emission color because they're applied to material that's the same all the way around. So we need to go into texture paint now. And it's the same kind of deal where we're in rendered view on the left here and we're in the normal view on the right. So in the rendered view, we need to actually add back a light because we turned off the light. So turn the sun back on with this button. And so the right side will be material preview and the left side will be rendered. And we're just going to let this go for now. So we need to draw on this and we want to use a new brush to do this. So you can just mess up your paint soft brush. This won't save, by the way, unless you purposely want to save it. So if you go into the settings here, you can get a texture mask. Sorry, not a texture mask, a texture. You don't want to do texture mask. And then we'll find the rock picture. So this is with the sculpting brush that we just used. It will be available in the description of the video for free. And we just want to find the same one that we used. So that's this one. And so then we need to change the color to be a little bit lighter or darker. It doesn't matter, so that you can change. So if you do this, we don't want it to be a stroke. We want it to actually be, so go back to the main area and under, okay, under brush settings, under stroke, take this and change it to anchored. So this is the same thing we did in sculpting and painting are almost the exact same thing, by the way. And you can do the same thing with saving brushes as well that you did with the sculpting brush. So if we drag this, you should be able to drag it onto there. Let me just see if I do a darker color. Okay, so why is this not doing anything? Okay, get rid of the texture. I clicked texture mask. That's why it's not doing anything. So get rid of the texture mask. We don't need that. And just make this a little bit lighter or darker or whatever. The goal is you want to use this texture to paint this so that it looks different. So let's Control Z some of this stuff because we just want to do smaller patches so that it's higher detail. So you can go around this and just add these where you see fit. And this makes it look way more realistic. And again, you could have made this more realistic by using 0.3 when you were doing the Dynatopo instead of 0.4. And that's what I did with the one that I already have. A lot of people doing this will have a worse computer than me, though. So if you try to do that, it will crash your computer or lag really badly. So that's up to you. If you want to do that, go nuts. You could also use symmetry while you're doing this, while you're painting. That might make this quicker than doing it like this. It's too late for me now. I already started painting it, but you could use symmetry to do this. So then you get like this rock look. That looks pretty awesome, to be honest. And then for both of the road and the skull, you're going to have to save the pictures so that you can import them into Unity. So once you're done painting this and you're happy with it, you can spend longer on this or change the colors or have like an array of colors as well, like you did with the ground. But for rocks, it's very forgiving. So it doesn't really like, I don't think you're going to make it look better by doing more than this, to be honest. So from here, you can change this back to the UV editor. And then this has the image saved in it. So you'll click Save As. In your Downloads folder, just create a new folder, and we'll call this Skull Tutorial Folder. And so inside of this, we can save this image. And then if we go back here and we unhide the path, we can go to UV editing and save. Okay, so there's really bad news. I didn't actually save the texture for the brick floor. So hopefully you saved it when you were editing it. If you didn't, you're going to have to do it over. Really sucks. So to save it, again, you can select the object that you are wanting to save the picture for. You can go to Texture Paint, and at the top here under Image, you can click Save As, and you can put it into a folder that you're able to find on your computer. I didn't do that for the. I don't know why I didn't do that. I don't see it on the. In this drop down, there should be this picture somewhere. Hang on, let me just try it again. Texture Paint. Yeah, and that has skull material there. So anyway, so hopefully you saved the floor picture. Again, if you didn't, so you just make it one color and you paint the insides of the bricks. It's not rocket science, really. And so now what we can do is we could get a rendered view if you want. And so you can see that this emission looks terrible. So if you wanted to render this, and I lost the thing, so it's not going to look as good. But as well as like, I guess this is not really a Blender tutorial. This is for my game. So what you could do at this point is you could export just the skull and the road, because you probably painted your road, but I'm just going to show you how you can export the skull. You can do the same thing with the road as you're doing with the skull. So you'll export the skull as an FBX file, and we're going to put this into that same folder, which is skull tutorial folder, and we'll just call this skull. On the right side here, you can apply FBX unit scale. At the bottom, turn off animations, and you can export this. And so then back inside of your project, you can create a new folder, and I'm just going to delete this when I'm done. So we'll create a new folder, and we'll call this skull tutorial. And we're going to minimize all of this stuff, and we're going to leave the game running. Why not? So we want to drag in all of the things from that folder. So these two things can get dragged in here. And then the skull, you can drag that right into the thing. If the because we didn't delete the sun or the other cube, we can delete those now. And then the skull probably went into the ground. So you can see that this is really small to begin with. Let's move it this way and rotate it on the y-axis 180 degrees. And then we can make this a lot bigger. So just make it larger and put it downwards to the ground and make it larger again and backwards and downwards. And so this is the same as the one that I have, kind of. And so the top part of the eye, you might want to make it so that the texture is the same at the top, so it's more visible. So let's go back to the texture painting for a sec. And so right here, instead of using this, we're going to go and paint soft without the texture. And we don't want to do that with it. We want to change the stroke to space. And then we need the color to match this. So we want to just do like this so that these eyelids are kind of separated objects so that they have more distinction from the other objects because it's a top-down game. So then we can do kind of the same thing here. So let's go a little bit lighter first, like this. And then we can take a little bit darker and go over it like this. So this just, we're just clumping this out into different sections of the rock to make it more together. So like the eyelids should be more together. And then we can save this image. Don't have the material anymore. We can create a new material and we can take the skull material and put it here. And then we could take this new material and drag it on. And then we want to turn down the smoothness so that it's rock, right? You could even turn up the metallic a little bit if you wanted to. But so yeah, so then in the game, this looks pretty cool. It's too big, so let's make it a little bit smaller. Okay, so we only made the skull bigger. We didn't make the actual top part bigger. Okay, and then the last thing that we did was we added a light to both of the eyes. So if you right click on the skull, you can click light and add a point light. And we'll just move this up and over and down and put it into one of the eyes. So hang on, like that, and then down and then left. We'll make this red, like pure red, and then we'll turn the intensity to like 100 and the range to 10,000. And so this adds kind of like the eye glow to it. And then we just want this to be perfectly in the center of the eye. We don't want it to be hanging out like this. So move it down and right and up and left. And then if we get a front view of this, we can press Control D to duplicate this and move the other one over here. So that in the game view, the eyes have like the glow. So on this one, it looks like I did a better job making the eyes separate. And then there's like a nose area. So to accomplish that, you would just want to go back into the sculpting and push this. Oh, sorry. I got to turn on Dynatopo and I need to put it into clay strips instead. So let's do that. And again, I used 3 on mine before. So it looks like I have like an area that's here. And then I have another area that's like lower than that. Oh, geez. Okay, anyway, the first one I did ended up better. Sometimes when you make things in art, it's perfect the first time, and then making it again can be difficult. But I'm going to attach my version of it to the video. So this version that you see on the right will be attached in the description of the video for free. It'll also include the texture that goes on it and all the stuff that's required, as well as the entire project. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And hopefully I will see you guys in the next one.